Okay, we started off looking at the Ten Commandments. We briefly touched on the first commandment, which is not really, again, the word 406. The word commandment is not really a very good description. They're really the 10 statements. And we mentioned yesterday that all of the commandments can wend their way back. They can trace their roots back into one of them. But it says like this, so that's what we spoke about yesterday, that God is revealing his identity to the Jewish people as the God that took them out of Egypt. We spoke about the idea of why that seems to be a little bit restrictive. You know, God is after all-encompassing, almighty, all everything. It seems a little bit, a little bit small to say that I'm the God that took you out of Egypt. And yet we decided that the answer is that God, in order to be able to worship God, we have to build up a relationship with God. We've got to have some kind of an individual connection to God. And to be able to do that, so God is describing himself in smaller terms to us so that we should be able to build that relationship up. And then on page 480 it says like this, Lo yelecha Elohim achirim al panai. You shouldn't have any other gods in my presence, right? No, we're talking about no idol worship.
What if not in the presence?
There is no place there's no presence of God.
I mean, what would it say?
I think what he's saying is...
The emphasis is like this, al panai. I don't know why I really don't know why the Rabbi, hold on a second, I don't know why Rabbi Scroll used the word my presence, to be honest. Because al panai means in front of me.
Which he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's what it says in my presence, because if he's everywhere, that means he's in front of me.
Yeah, but the emphasis is it's a I don't know, it's a somewhat, maybe it's like a somewhat clumsy word to use.
What is considered to be an idol?
Well, I mean, look around the room. Most people look pretty idle to me.
No, it's hilarious. But what I was saying was...
English humor.
Thank you.
What, for example,
You noticed.
Oh,
Good.
Tad.
Very good.
What
Okay.
we should do is every time we make a joke as English people, we should put the thing up.
Yes.
And then people will laugh.
Well, they won't. They'll try to read what's written up there.
Oh,
But,
true. Yeah.
what is the definition of an idol? It's a very difficult question to answer. It really is, because there is. I mean, an idol could really be. You can turn anything into an idol, right? And anything that you attribute some kind of divine powers to is an idol. So you could worship a tree, you can worship a rock, you could worship a person. Of course.
What about the Rabbi?
Me?
No.
Is it possible for a human being to be a god? Yeah, for sure. In idol worshipping terms, of course. I mean, Paro is looked at himself as being the god. The Egyptians worshipped Paro as being a god. Throughout history, there have been plenty of people that have claimed some kind of divine.
Jim Jones. What was that his name?
Oh, from the Mormons, right?
The guy who took everyone out, made him drink the Kool-Aid that killed him.
In Georgetown.
In Waco.
One of the Guianas.
Yeah, in Waco. What a great name.
Really
Whatever. I mean, I don't know the details over there, but is it conceivable that they all thought that he was a god of some kind? I mean, if that's the case, then that's idol worship, right? Idol worship can be something animate, it can be something inanimate. No, it's fine. I mean, really, you can turn anything into an idol. You really can.
So if I watch it, let's say I support a football team, and my favourite player on that football team is, let's say,
Beckman.
Me.
Beckman. Okay, it's an English guy.
Let's say I used to like Cesc Fabregas when he played for us. So let's say Fabregas is my favourite football player. Is that idolatry if I watch him and I like copy his moves?
What's his name? Fiberglass?
You don't believe he's a god?
Fiberglass.
Fabregas.
Fabregas?
I'm not even going there.
Pate de foie gras. What's it called?
Fabregas.
Okay, pate de foie gras. No, that's not called idol worship. When you've got a particular affinity for like a player and you follow him and you copy his moves, but you know he's not God.
Oh yeah.
Right. Cool. I once said there was a fellow here once from Toronto who told me that Toronto, they're crazy about ice hockey.
Oh,
and he said that he once met Wayne Gretzky, who was the greatest ice hockey player in the world. And so I asked him, what was it like? He said he'd spent years like wanting to meet this. He was the biggest thing around, and he said that he made a complete and absolute fool of himself because he was so completely in awe that he said his hands were sweating, and and he's like he couldn't think of anything to say. He's like this Wayne Gretzky's like trying to have a conversation with him, and he was just like grunting back, like Neanderthal man or something. And so I asked him, why on earth did you behave like that? I mean, he's just a human being. He says, I know that. He says, but I don't know. I was overcome. So I mean, that's not that's
like
not.
Allen Iverson was Philadelphia.
Sorry.
A certain player in Philadelphia, everyone treated him like he was.
Well, probably only in Philadelphia because no one else had heard of him. I would have thought. No,
he was.
I don't think no one's heard of Philadelphia actually, except for
Who you don't?
Yeah, that's right. He was very, very good at practice.
Here, you just spoke heresy, right? Look what happened. You were punished immediately.
Practice.
Anyway, that you shouldn't have any idols. No, idol worship is out, unfortunately. You're not allowed to make any graven images. Now, there's an interesting dimension in halacha, in Jewish law, about how are we going to define a graven image over here. Right, I imagine that everybody over here at some point in kindergarten or a little bit older, you probably came home with something that you'd made out of clay or something, which was supposed to be a sculpture of a dog or a cat or your mother, and it probably looked like a Martian or something. But so what is a graven image and what is not? So first of all, there are different opinions inside of Jewish law. There are different opinions. Some opinions say that a graven image is something which has to be three-dimensional. So some people are of the opinion that three-dimensional images are a graven image. There is a very basic halachic opinion which is used by most people from the Chai Adam, who says that anything that was not made as an idol is not a problem. So, for example, this has some very basic repercussions, for everyday life. If you've got children at home, little girls, they like to play with dolls, right? Is a doll a graven image? I mean, it's a three-dimensional thing, right? So some people really do have the custom to somehow disfigure the whatever it is, like they'll chop off their nose or they'll poke out an eye or something, which might explain why certain children go around trying to poke out eyes of the people they're playing with, because that's what they see their parents doing to their dolls. I don't know, but the general accepted opinion is that dolls and the like, and even sculptures that have been sculpted that's not a graven image. That's not a problem because it wasn't made in order to be avodah zarah, in order to be idol worship. There was somebody here not so very long ago who wanted to know. He'd come back from Asia. And he'd come back with it was just like a little memento, like a tourist thing. He'd bought a little Buddha. He wanted to know if that was a problem or not. And I think it was, right? I think Buddha. Yeah, I think things that definitely look like idol worship. Those are things that you should not be buying. Well, I have a little theory that Buddha might actually have been Jewish at some point because he's this massively overweight, man just sitting there doing nothing. I mean. Perhaps not.
Actually,
okay, anyway.
Actually, Buddha wasn't really fat. In fact, he was like super skinny. He only ate like a grain of rice a day.
So why are all his sculptures like this big?
I don't know where they got the idea.
Well, it was a grain of rice that was like this big,
But my brother did some serious research on Buddha.
It was a grain of rice that came in in a bowl of cream sauce. Which is you only weigh one grain of rice a day.
So much saying about the water.
It's nothing. Don't make images of birds, and don't make images of animals, and don't make images of fish, right? Nothing at all. Because it says like this: Lo in the heavens above, v'asher ba'aretz mitachas, and the earth underneath, v'asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz, and the water that's below the earth. Yeah.
Slight issue.
Pardon?
Slight issue. It says here, you shall not recognize the gods of others in my presence. He's not denying the fact that there's going to be gods. He says you should not recognize.
Yeah, very good. Right, it's true. Actually, interesting enough what is fascinating is that the prohibition against idol worship is universal. It's not just for the Jewish people. It's one of the 7 Noahide laws, and it's something that non-Jews are supposed to be keeping as well.
Yeah.
However, it's clear from the language over here that God accepts the fact that people will worship idols. And again, it's the idea of bechira, free will, which means that you can choose to do what God wants you to do, and you can choose not to do what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
And God is aware of the fact that the Jewish people have come out of Egypt. They've been living in a completely idol-worshipping environment. Right? One of the reasons that Rav Yehuda Levi says in Sefer HaKuzari, the very fact that the Jewish people worshipped the golden calf 50 days after receiving the Torah from God, right, is not something which, when you put it into perspective, should have been such an enormous surprise, because everybody worshipped idols, everybody. And when you're being told to do something different, and then things start getting very difficult, Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't there, they became very scared. So he says that they reverted back to what they knew.
But wasn't that, you're talking about when they were serving the golden calf?
Yeah.
But didn't someone put like the name of God and the calf was able to speak or something?
Not the name of God, but put in something called Alei Shur, which was a golden tablet that was given that represented Yosef. It's a complicated business, but the emphasis is like this. Again, according to some opinions, when they first built the golden calf, they didn't worship it as an idol at the beginning. Yeah. They understood that there was going to be some kind of a medium that was going to allow them to connect to God, because Moshe wasn't there anymore. Right?
But still, he says, you shall have no other gods. Like, he's acknowledging there's other gods.
Yeah.
Shouldn't he say, you shall have no idols, like, specifically? Like, other gods are saying that they're on his level.
I don't know. Listen, let's go back to the beginning, right? What does it say? It says, "Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzitzechem me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeis Avim." I'm the Lord your God. And then it says, "Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai," that you shouldn't have any other gods. I think the context makes perfect sense. I am the Lord your God, right? You shouldn't have any other gods. And then he says, "V'lo yisaseh lecha pesach v'chol tmuna," and you shouldn't have any graven images. Maybe the idea over here is what? I'm just thinking out loud. It's an interesting question, right? But I think like this. God has no physicality to him. So maybe the chronology over here makes perfect sense, doesn't it? He's saying like this: I am the Lord your God. You shouldn't have any other gods. Don't worship something else that you claim doesn't have any physicality either, and don't worship things that do have physicality. Like a chronology, yeah? Oh, good. Okay, now.
Two questions for you. Firstly, surely that doesn't show Moshe in good light. If the second that he goes away, they do the golden calf. What is that as a leader? What does that show as a leader?
It's not the second that he went away. He was gone for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? He was gone for a real long time. He was gone for 40 days.
Right.
And what happened was that, again, there are different approaches about what was going on, but according to many of the early authorities, the Jewish people had no idea when he was coming back. Which is the first day he goes up, they expect him to come back the next day. Doesn't come. They're stuck in the desert. I have to understand, they're stuck in the desert with their whole protection system has been established by Moshe. Right? Their whole connection with God has been established by Moshe.
But
right?
doesn't show him a good light.
Why not?
Because for me, it seems that they couldn't survive without him.
They can't. They can't survive in the desert without Moshe Rabbeinu.
So why does that show him in bad light if they can't survive without him?
Because a leader is someone who is able to pass on things.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure that's fair what you're saying. I think like this: the leadership that Moshe is giving is a leadership which is specific to a certain time in history.
True.
When the Jewish people are dependent upon that. I'll give you an example. Winston Churchill, right, who led Britain during the Second World War and was tremendously successful. But when it got to right before the end of the Second World War, they threw him out. There were elections. He got thrown out of government, right? Because what's the chat? He was the right person in the right place for what they needed then. And afterwards, they didn't want that anymore. Which means that Moshe Rabbeinu is in place in order to get the Jewish people out of Egypt to the land of Israel.
Okay.
Right? And for that, they need somebody of the stature of Moshe Rabbeinu. And no, they can't do it with anybody else.
Okay, fine. And then the whole idolatry thing. Why didn't he reveal it to Abraham when he first found God? When his father had an idol shop and everything like that. Why wouldn't he say, do you know what, you shouldn't have had any other idols except me?
So the emphasis is like this. Again, it's an important question because it defines a little bit who we are and when we become Jewish. Right? Which means Avraham Avinu found God by himself. His whole relationship with God is something which he built up within himself. He went out and he experimented with other forms of worship. He looked at nature, he studied, he investigated, and he came to the conclusion that there has to be a God. Right? After having reached that conclusion, he then starts trying to work out what it is that God wants from him. God, with very few exceptions, God does not command Abraham to do anything. Right? He commands him to do a bris milah, right? But he doesn't tell Abraham that he's got to keep Shabbos and he's got to keep Pesach and he's got to keep Sukkot and he's got to do all of these things. And Abraham learnt it by himself that that's what was required of him. Which means that whatever Avram is doing, he's doing it from himself. In a sense, he's doing it voluntarily. And he doesn't need God to tell him that he shouldn't be worshipping idols because he worked that one out by himself.
And also, Abraham went and destroyed his father's idols. And then
Absolutely, right?
When his dad got back, he said, well, the idols did it.
Absolutely, which means he's learned that lesson, right? He knows that.
Dad was like, what do you mean they can't move? And he was like, exactly. So why do you pray to him?
That's right. Listen, the Medrash says even more than that. The Medrash says that his father says to him, I just made them this morning. Right?
Yeah.
What
you're not getting what I'm saying. As in, it was a time of idolatry.
Yes.
So why wouldn't he reveal it then?
Reveal what?
Reveal that you
it's revealed already. I didn't understand the question. The 7 Noahide laws include a prohibition against worshipping idols, which means that everybody is obligated to keeping the 7 Noahide laws.
And here we have an issue of so this is what happened with Abraham's father. He had this whole shop, etc., and he goes and worships idols, and everybody else worships idols, and yet there's still no consequence for them worshipping idols.
I mean, the emphasis is like this: that there is a consequence to them worshipping idols, which is that God. How does it work? It works like this: when God created the world, God was supposed to be a universal concept that everybody was able to worship and to approach and to connect to in the same way. When we get to Avram Avinu, we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now narrowing that connection down into Avram Avinu and his descendants, which is a Jewish nation. And that means like this: there is a consequence to what they do, which means that by worshipping idols, what are they doing? They're proving that they are not capable of building that relationship, that closeness of a relationship with God. It doesn't mean that non-Jewish nations can't connect to God. Of course they can, but they can't do it in a way that the Jews can.
Then why did it get then? Because after the whole golden calf thing, again, why weren't they in a sense cut off? Because of the fact that
that's what it says, that God wanted to do that. God came to Moshe and he said, listen, it can't carry on like this. He said, let me wipe them out and I'll start again with you.
Sure, it's the most amazing thing, because if he has a view about something, but he's still open to debate that view, that's incredible that he can have so much mercy upon
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, the mercy came out of Moshe.
Yeah, you're right, but Chazal explain like this. The sages explain like this. So it's a very interesting thing. The sages say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants Moshe to react in the way that he does.
I suppose that edging him on.
He's waiting for Moshe to react like that in order to be able to be merciful. Anyway, let's have a look and see, right? לא ישתחווה להם ולא יתעבדם כי אנוכי השם אלוקיך על כנף פוקד עוון אבויס הבנים ועל שלישים והרבים לשונאי. What's the pshat? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you can't do anything with these idols. You can't bow down to them. You can't do anything. One of the 3 cardinal sins is what's called avodah zarah, right? Idol worship. What is a cardinal sin? There are 3 sins which a person is supposed to give up their life for rather than transgress. One of them is worshipping idols. Right, so God says you can't do anything that is similar to idol worship. You can't do anything that people do in front of idols because that's completely and absolutely forbidden.
What's the explanation of Hashem saying, and I'm a jealous God? I mean, why?
Surely that's not an attribute of mercy that one should have. If we're supposed to be God, we can also be jealous then.
No, but
Or an
why would God want to
attribute
be
of
jealous?
a God.
Huh?
Well,
what is jealous? God doesn't have to be jealous, that's for sure. What's the concept of jealousy? The emphasis is like this: anthropomorphism. Right? One of those great words which you should try to just throw it into conversation from time to time. Anthropomorphism.
Oh yeah.
What is anthropomorphism? It is giving God human attributes so that we can understand and relate to God. So, for example, God gets angry. God is a jealous God. God, on Rosh Hashanah, gets up of his throne of din, of judgment, and sits on the throne of mercy, of rachamim. Right? Does God get up? Does God have a throne? Does God sit down? No, God is not human. But the only way that we can relate to God is by giving God some kind of human attributes over here. In order to understand the enormity of what it means to worship idols, so you need to understand, again, in human terms, how are we going to relate to that? Well, one of the strongest human emotions is the emotion of jealousy. Right? How am I able to understand what this action, what the spiritual repercussions of this action are going to be? By understanding that in this dimension, God is described as being a jealous God. But you should know what you're doing, right? You should know what you're playing with. When you do these things, right, you should know what the repercussions of them are. And then it says, Lo yisisa Shem Hashem Elokecha lashav. Don't take God's name in vain. Ki lo yenakeh Hashem es asher yisai shmoi lashav. Because God will not absolve anybody who takes his name in vain. What's the big deal about taking God's name in vain?
Unfortunately, why does he go? No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. He goes from singular to plural again. He says, I am Hashem, and then it says, you shall not take the name of Hashem, your God. It goes. Why does it keep on switching from I am your God and to I am, yeah.
What?
Lo tisa Shem Hashem Elokecha lashav, ki lo yinakeh Hashem es asher yisai shmoi lashav.
1 second. He
Where
said,
are
I am
you?
Hashem your God. So that's what it means. So
where are you? Which verse?
I am Hashem your God. Why did he say that? Why didn't he just say I am Hashem?
Ki anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God. Oh, because it's in the singular.
Yeah. That's
Right?
what it
I am the Lord your God.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know that this is a very personal relationship.
Okay.
Kel kana pokei davon avodah banim v'shilim v'arim. So no, what does it say in the plural over here?
No, it doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong.
The whole Indian over here of being in the singular is that you need to know that the Ten Commandments have been given to you. Each person to you, right? When you say I am God,
Yeah, but great, you don't have to take 10, 9, 8, 7 times the whole time.
apparently you do. In order to reiterate over and over again, the more difficult something is, the greater your motivation needs to be able to do it, right? Which means like this, that very Yiddish mama syndrome, right? Where they want to make their kids guilty, so they'll talk about how much they love their kids, and right, it works with everything. The more difficult something is, the more motivation you need. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, these are difficult things to overcome over here, right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I am the Lord your God. You need to know this, right? I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God. Why should you do this? Because I am the Lord your God.
Is it because, after every command, they apparently, literally died and then came back to life? Then he wanted to repeat that so that they know it.
I don't think so. I've never seen that. Maybe. I don't know. It says only with the first two commandments that they died over there. But you see the idea. What's the big deal about taking God's name in vain? Huh?
Bringing his name down.
Which means what? What does that mean? You bring his name down?
Disrespectful.
It's disrespectful, right? Why would a person take God's name in vain?
No.
Even not inside of Avodah Zarah. Why would a person take God's name in vain?
Put that God down.
By saying, let's say as a witness or something.
Oh no! Yeah, no.
You'll say, you use, I swear by God, which
Yeah.
is not even true.
What's the pshat? As a rule, when a person uses God's name in order to emphasize something,
You use
So very often, first of all, very often he's coming to tell a whopper, right? He's about to tell a lie. And he's using God's name to reinforce. Here, my father always used to tell me like this.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Here, we'll see the trickle down effect. Hold on, right? My father always used to say like this, that when somebody starts off a sentence with, well, to tell you the truth, or to be honest, right? That normally means they're about to tell you a lie, right? What are they doing? They're trying to get you to be honest. Oh, he's about to be honest. I ought to listen to this, right? Or to tell you the truth. Oh, this is the truth. I better listen to this, right? Well, what's he doing? He's trying to commit. Why not to convince himself to sell what it is that he's trying to give over? He's trying to use because he knows that without that, it's going to be a hard sell, right? So when a person comes along and says, "I swear, in the name of God, I swear that this is what happened," or "I swear that is what happened." So very often that person is using the name of God in order to sell what it is that he wants the other person to believe, even though it may not be true. From that, there is a general prohibition against taking God's name in vain, just to swear for no reason. Which is why we've got to be careful when we're talking, even if what we're saying is true, you should be careful not to use phrases like, "I swear to you that this is true," because it's a general prohibition over here, right? I swear to you in the name of God that it's true. You don't have to. If it's true, then it's true. Don't start evoking God in order to get, in order to be able to build up some kind of an argument for what it is that you want to give over. I mentioned here not very long ago. I mentioned that in England, when a person gives evidence in court, so he has to swear, and he swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if you stop and think about it for a minute, those are three different things. There's the truth, there's the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? So it's like a person standing up in court and he says, "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth." Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And the person answers, "Well, which one do you want?" You want the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth. They're three different things, right? And then, what have we got over here? The fourth commandment is Zocha is Yom HaShabbos L'Kadshah. We have to remember Shabbat. Right? Sheish is Yom Tavoid V'Asisa Kol Melachtecha. We should work for 6 days. The Yom HaShishavas LaHashem Elokecha Lo Yisasei Kol Melacha Tovin Chavitecha Avdecha V'Yamascha V'Emtecha V'Gecha Asher B'Shorecha. That on the seventh day nobody should work. Ki Sheish is Yom Asah Hashem Es HaShamayim V'Es Haaretz. Why? Because God created the world in 6 days. Es Hayam V'Es Kol Asher Bo. V'Yonach B'Yom HaShvir. On the seventh day God rested. Okay, Be'ach Hashem is Yom HaShabbos V'Yikadsheu. Very nice, right? The mitzvah of Shabbos is something which is particular to the Jewish people. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is teaching us that the 6 days of the week, where the 6 working days of the week are a reenactment of the 6 days of the creation. And on Shabbat we don't work because we are reenacting now the 7th day when God rested.
That's how I do kids.
Yeah. Right, and then Dibur number 5.
What's rested? What do you do with?
What is rested?
God
right,
can't
interesting question. God can't rest, so you shouldn't rest either. Right? It says over here, amongst the Meforshim, they explain like this: you're not allowed to do work on Shabbos. What is considered to be work? Some creative work, right? Which is a slightly different idea. You're not allowed to do work. Are you allowed to move the sofa from one side of the salon to the other side because you've got guests coming on Shabbat, even though it's incredibly heavy? Yeah, no problem, right? Can you carry a little key outside where there's no Eruv? Can you carry your front door key outside in order to be able to get back in again? No, you shouldn't do that. What's the difference between the two? If I were to ask you which one is work, so we'd all say shifting the sofa for sure is a lot harder work, right?
The first one is more. The key is more uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
It puts you in a more uncomfortable position.
No.
It puts you in a more uncomfortable position by not being able to carry your key.
No.
Oh no, it's interesting. No, I mean, if you put the sofa down on somebody's foot, it puts them in an uncomfortable position. That's for sure, right? But the bottom line is like this: one is considered to be work, and the other one is considered to be creative work. If something is creative work, then it can't be done on Shabbat. Which means, again, can you move the sofa from one side of the salon to the other? Yes, you can. Can you walk outside with the key in your pocket on Shabbat? No, you've got to find a different way of being able to either have the key hidden away somewhere to be able to carry it around with you in a way that's not going to be a problem on Shabbat. So when it says over here, Vayonach b'yom hashvi, that God rested on the seventh day, it means that God rested from making creative actions. Moish, you in there?
I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm reading this also. Okay, I'll start reading.
You hear the difference, right? When it says that God created, doesn't mean that you're right. God can't rest. If God rested for a moment, the world would cease to exist. But God is not creating. It's two different things.
Is resting a physical thing, or
For us as human beings, it is. There is a concept. Interestingly enough, there is a concept inside of the Gemara which says that sheina b'Shabbos tanug, that sleeping on Shabbos is a joy. It's something good. Yeah.
Is there an Eruv all around Jerusalem?
Yeah.
Like around the whole city?
There's an Eruv around the whole of the greater Jerusalem area.
Mm-hmm.
There is inside of Jerusalem itself. There are different Eruvs as well, right? People have established their own Eruvs inside of the Eruv. Some people are a little unhappy about the enormity of the Eruv that goes around Yerushalayim, but certainly you can rely upon it. And when there's bad weather, you have to find out whether it's still up or not. When there's snow, sometimes the thing comes down, but. Normally it's okay. There are people who go around every Erev Shabbos. There are people who go around and make sure that it's all up and working. If you look carefully, actually, if you walk out of the yeshiva and just go to the corner, you will see a pole with a very thin wire going across it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember but normally they have a little ribbon attached to it so they can see whether it's still the way that it's supposed to be.
When were Eruvs implemented? When was the first? When was this idea? When did it become halacha to have an Eruv? Or is it all the way from?
It's all again. The idea of being able to carry inside of something which is enclosed has always been around. The question over here is how do you define what's enclosed and what's not? So where does it?
I mean, I
Right,
know
so-
I know the rule. You can't carry anything from private property to public property, or
Right.
public property to private property. But the street is public property, regardless of whether or not there's a string that hangs around
Right.
it.
So first of all, the concept of public
why it
property
makes
is
sense.
defined in halakha as being something very, very big. So it's got to have traffic of 600,000 people going along it. Now 600,000 people is 300,000 people in both directions, and it's like I don't know, maybe it's like 100,000 cars or
There's no need
something.
for an Eruv at all because there's nothing that has that many people going.
Oh, not so. That's not
That's
so.
not
Not so sure. First of all, here in Israel, there is something that you can go from Bnei Brak and Ramat Gan. I don't know if you know the Tel Aviv area, right? But from Bnei Brak, Ramat Gan, if you go away from Tel Aviv towards Tel HaShomer, there's a big hospital over there. There's something called Summit Geya, which runs down the middle, right? Summit Geya is a big. Oh yeah, you okay?
Oh yeah.
Good. Okay. There's a major highway that runs through, and according to many opinions, again, even though 600,000 people sounds like a lot, right? But we're talking about 600,000 people going in both directions, which means it's 300,000 in each direction, and what do you need? You need maybe 100,000 cars, maybe would get you that kind of a figure. Buses, public transport, right?
Yeah.
So according to many opinions, so that whole area could be described as what's called Reshut Harabim, a public domain, and that's why the Eruv stops at the next to the road, and a new Eruv continues after the road. It's a problem to go across that carrying things.
What about across the street, across Shimon Chassadik?
No, over here you don't have anywhere near enough to
Right,
turn that
but
into
that's what
a.
I'm saying. So hypothetically, an Eruv would be unnecessary. Let's say I wanted to go to Rabbi Geffen's house across the street and carry my keys there without an Eruv.
No, you have to.
No,
There
you
has to be
don't.
some kind of an Eruv which is going to surround the area that you want to carry in,
But-
because you're still taking it. It gets a bit
But you're saying that
complicated.
public property is defined by the
Going-
quantity of
yeah.
cars or the quantity of people,
Yeah.
the quantity of traffic along this particular
Here, so
thoroughfare.
okay,
You know?
I don't.
So-
It gets a little detailed. What I just described to you, right? That Reshut Harabim, that public domain,
Yeah.
is what's called Reshut Harabim Deoraita, which means that according to Torah law, that is definitely a public domain. There is what's called Reshut Harabim Derabanan, which is a public area, which requires the only way that it's possible to carry in a public area from a private area into a public area is by turning it into a private area. That's where the Eruv comes into play. The Eruv takes the area and turns it into one unit. Right? Now, it's true that nothing has changed, right? It's still roads and streets, and you've got to cross over the street in order to get to the other side, and you've got to, nothing has changed, but halachically, the definition has now changed.
Okay.
Okay, again, you're looking a little quizzical.
I mean, it just seems like a nice little convenient loophole that somebody
Yeah.
made up at some point in time.
It's not, again, you have to understand that the first part, for sure it's very convenient. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. Is it a loophole? It is, I would say it's a borderline loophole, which
That's
means that
also
you're
what the rabbis
utilizing.
did.
Yeah.
They tried to find ways to make the
You're-
halacha more convenient and work their way around it.
Absolutely, right? You're utilizing the halacha in order to have it work for your benefit. That's for sure.
What about the prohibition of this very idea of taking something from private to public or public to private? What is the source for that particular prohibition?
Carrying in Reshut Harabim is one of the Lamatet Malachot, one of the 39 categories of work, right? Which are forbidden on Shabbat. Where did they come from? They can be traced back into the different kinds of works that were used in order to build the tabernacle. Right? Things that even the building of the tabernacle did not take precedence over Shabbos, which when it came to Shabbos they had to stop building. Those are the original 39. Those are like 39 major categories. Inside of each category there are then a bunch of offshoots that come down. They're called Avot and Toladot. An Av means a father, right? An Av is the major category. And then there are things that are similar enough to that category that they're also forbidden by, you're guilty by, what's it called? Guilty by association. Thank you. I forgot the word. Guilty by association. So over here you've got Avot and Toladot, and you've got what are called Torah prohibitions, and you've got rabbinical prohibitions, right? And that's where all of these things are coming from. It's true that without a doubt, on occasion, it sounds like we're doing things which are, we're turning the halacha into something else in order to have it work for our benefit. Like an Eruv, right? An Eruv is something which is difficult. We imagine that something which is enclosed is something which is, by walls. The original old city of Jerusalem, there you see the Eruv, right? Because those are the walls that go around the city of Yerushalayim. That makes sense, right?
Even then, the street that is not owned by a particular person but is public property. Even if you build a wall around it, it's still public property.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, even that idea, even if it is enclosed, even if you build a roof over it, over the whole city, but some parts are owned by different. As long as some
you're
something is
right.
owned publicly and something is owned privately, it doesn't really fix the problem.
You're right. So here, the halacha is coming along and saying that that it does fix a problem, right? And it's perfectly 100% halachically acceptable. Now you should know. It really is not a loophole. Loopholes by definition are things which are okay, right? But everybody knows they're not okay. Over here, this is something. It's 100%. Oh, it's 100% accepted. It really is, and it's just utilizing the halacha in a particular way. I'm trying to think right now. My mind has gone blank, which is its general state of being. But I'm trying to think of something within the halacha which is much more obviously a loophole than an eruv.
I think there's a place, Brooklyn, New York,
Ocean Parkway.
and
Rav Moshe Feinstein Paskin that Ocean Parkway was a Rishus Harabim.
Yeah, that is Flatbush. Flatbush, there's no error.
Now, so what Rav Moshe Paskin was that you could have an Eruv up to Ocean Parkway, and then you could have an Eruv on the other side of Ocean Parkway as well. But what they wanted to put up they wanted to put up an Eruv that encompassed Ocean Parkway as well, that you could walk from one side to the other, and Rav Moshe said that it was forbidden.
Yeah, which is, and it was part of the loopholes of allowing Arabs.
So you could carry anything.
You can only carry what you need.
Right.
Which means that if you need your key to get into the house, you can carry the key. If you need
stroller.
a stroller, you're going to
Towels.
somebody's house and you need to take a bottle of wine, you could do that, right? You can't, you can't carry a book from one place to another just because, you want to take it back to.
Where does this idea of only something that you need come from?
So that's already a rabbinical thing, which means on Shabbat we're supposed to do things which are Shabbat orientated, right? We're trying to be a little bit different, right? So the idea is like this: that if I do everything that I would normally do during the week, then I'm not making enough of a differentiation. You should know that there are some people who don't like the idea of an Eruv, not because it's halachically incorrect, but because the minute you've got an Eruv, then you're behaving, like Shabbos is not different enough from the rest of the week.
Why couldn't they have just said you can carry strollers and keys without an Eruv? Because it seems like a little technicality that then makes it okay.
Yeah, for sure. It's a
seems
technicality.
Like if just had a rabbinical decree that would have made
it's not.
These are the two things allowed: strollers and keys.
Excuse me for saying this, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. What you're asking is not really valid, because for you, strollers and keys might be of paramount importance, but for somebody else, it might be something else altogether. Which means the minute you say that it's okay to carry these two things and nothing else, then that already means that it's okay to carry. The question only now is let's negotiate, right? What are we carrying? What are we not carrying, right?
It will
Whereas
become more and more.
It's a slippery slope.
yeah, for sure.
I have a brother-in-law that his TV, his computer, his telephone are covered Shabbos.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
how-
cute. It's nice. Whatever. I mean, do you have to do that? You don't have to do that, but it's
because it says it gives me the idea that Shabbos by in my house.
Well, I thought it was going to be the opposite, that he can uncover it. It's a way of turning it off without turning it off.
No, it gives him a feeling that
Like you could look at the screens.
here, it's
without-
interesting. Here, Rav Neuvert, who wrote a seminal work on the halachas of Shabbos, right, writes over there that you should not have your television on a time switch. But you're not doing anything, right? You didn't switch it on, you didn't switch it off, right? But he said you shouldn't do that because that's not the spirit of Shabbat, is to watch television.
So okay, fine. So if you, let's say in an Arab situated place that we're able to, let's say, carry things we need, how come we don't do we don't shake the lulav and etrog, let's say, because the only prohibition
Oh,
against
yeah,
doing
good,
it is
good question, right? So over
carrying
there,
it, right?
that ties back into something.
Muktzah.
No,
Why
the
is
question
it-
is why
why
on
is it
Shabbat
Oh, same as film.
that you shouldn't be out. No, it's filling is a different reason over here. Lulav and an esrog.
I think the only reason is because you might carry it.
Yeah, it's
Or
a different.
you
Yeah,
might
there's Gemara. The
carry it.
Gemara says, right. So over there, it ties into a different concept, right? Which got less to do with carrying and more to do with what happened in the temple. In the temple, they used to wave the lulav and the esrog on Shabbat as well, and because we don't have a temple anymore, right? So the rabbis were more stringent with regards to that. I think there's a spin-off as well, which means that it's interesting in one of the areas that where my brothers live. So they want to expand the Eruv. Why do they want to expand the Eruv? They live in London, right? Why do they want to expand the Eruv? Because they claim, I think quite correctly, that the Eruv stops over here, and the people that live beyond the Eruv, they don't always understand the subtleties of Eruv, yes Eruv, no Eruv. And they see these people carrying on Shabbos, they see these people pushing their strollers on Shabbos, and they're being told that they can't, and they don't understand, and it's causing people to push their strollers on Shabbos in a place where there's no Eruv. Right? Which means when it does make sense to have some kind of universality over here, I think. Right?
So can't I bench Esig and Lulav and Shabbos?
No, you can't.
Why?
But nobody can because the Beis Hamikdash is not here.
What about
right?
shofar? Shofar is the same way.
Shofar is the same thing. In the time of the
Can
Beis
I-
Hamikdash, they would blow the shofar on Shabbos.
Can I remove it,
That's
an
the
Esig
reason.
and a Lulav, from one place in my
On
house
Shabbos? No, because you're not allowed to. It's interesting. During the rest of the year, if you had a lulav and an esrog, you could move it. But on Shabbos Chol HaMoed, because it's attached to the mitzvah of Netilas Lulav, then you can't move it on Shabbos. Yeah, I think the bottom line over here is I think we should keep the mitzvahs. That's what I think. I'm not forcing my views onto anybody, but I think that's a good idea. Good. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Mitzvah Hashem.
Thank you.